The story begins with a young woman who lived in the shadow of her father's success. Her father was a respected black CEO, known in the business world for his strength, discipline, and fairness. He had built his company from almost nothing and turned it into one of the most admired firms in the country. To many, he was a symbol of success and leadership, but to his daughter, he was simply Dad. She admired her father deeply and had always watched how seriously he took his work. He believed that every employee, no matter their role, had value. He often reminded her that a company is only as strong as the people who work inside it. Growing up, she had heard countless stories at the dinner table about workplace loyalty, honesty, and the importance of respect. She had also seen the way her father rewarded people who worked hard and treated others well. But over time, she began to notice something. She would visit the office and see how employees greeted her father with respect and smiles, but when her father was not around, the atmosphere seemed different. Some workers looked careless, others were rude to lower-level staff, and she wondered if this was the reality her father never saw. It bothered her to think that people might only act polite in front of the CEO while showing a very different side when no one was watching. She carried this thought in her heart for many weeks. As the CEO's daughter, she knew that if she walked into the building dressed in fine clothes, everyone would treat her with respect immediately. No one would dare show their true behavior in front of her. But what if she entered the company as someone invisible? What if she went in as a person no one noticed, someone who blended into the background? Only then would she see the truth. That was when the unusual idea came to her mind. She would disguise herself as a cleaner. In her father's company, cleaners were often ignored by most of the staff. They worked silently in the background, dusting desks, mopping floors, or emptying trash bins. Nobody really paid much attention to them. If she became a cleaner, she could move around the office without attracting suspicion. She could see people's real faces, the way they spoke, the way they behaved, and the way they treated someone they thought had no power. At first, the idea felt strange. She had never cleaned offices before, never worn the uniform, and never carried cleaning tools. She had grown up with comfort, but her father had always taught her not to think herself above any kind of work. He often told her, "Dignity is not in the job, but in how you do it." Remembering his words, she felt encouraged. This would not be beneath her, it would be a test of character, for herself and for the people in the company. When she told her father about her plan, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. He was a man who believed in discipline, but also in fairness. After listening carefully, he leaned back in his chair and studied her face. He could see her determination. "It won't be easy," he warned gently. "You'll see things you may not like. People may treat you badly. But if this is what you truly want, I won't stop you." Her heart raced with excitement. She knew this would be a challenge, but she was ready. With her father's quiet approval, she contacted the cleaning department. Only the head of the department knew who she really was. To everyone else, she would be just another temporary cleaner brought in to help with office maintenance. The night before her first day, she laid out the uniform on her bed. It was a simple outfit, a plain shirt, dark pants, and an apron. She looked at it and smiled nervously. For the first time in her life, she would step into a role where nobody cared about her family name, her father's position, or her privileged background. She would be seen only as a cleaner. On the morning of her first shift, she tied her hair back, put on the uniform, and stood in front of the mirror. The reflection staring back at her looked nothing like the CEO's daughter, who usually wore stylish dresses and carried herself with elegance. She looked ordinary, almost invisible. And that was exactly what she wanted. When she entered the company building that day, she carried a cleaning cart in her hands. No one gave her a second glance. Some employees passed by without even noticing her. Others walked past and only gave her a short nod. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be unseen. She began her work quietly, dusting tables, wiping glass windows, and sweeping the floor. Every movement felt new and different. As she worked, she kept her ears open and her eyes sharp. She noticed the way certain employees interacted with her. Some smiled warmly and said good morning, while others acted as if she wasn't even there. Inside, she felt both nervous and curious. Would she find out what she suspected? Would the workers reveal their true behavior when they thought no one important was watching? She had no answers yet, but she was determined to keep going. During lunch break, she sat alone in the staff area, eating the simple meal she had packed. She watched as employees grouped together in corners, laughing and chatting. Some glanced at her and whispered as if she did not belong in their circle. She swallowed her feelings and reminded herself that she was here for a mission. She was here to uncover the truth. That first day passed slowly, but it gave her a new perspective. Being a cleaner was not easy. The work was tiring, and standing all day left her feet aching. Yet she realized this was what many people went through every single day without complaint. She felt respect growing in her heart for the real cleaners who did this job daily. As she left the office that evening, she reflected on everything she had seen. Already, she had caught small glimpses of behavior that would have shocked her father. She saw one employee being rude to the security guard. She overheard another speaking disrespectfully about cleaners. But she also saw kindness. One woman offered her a bottle of water, another held the door open for her with a smile. It was only the beginning, but she already knew this journey would be more eye-opening than she had imagined. For the first time in her life, she understood what it felt like to be invisible, to be treated as if you didn't matter. And she promised herself that she would not waste this opportunity. She would continue her undercover role until she truly uncovered the hearts of the people working in her father's company. With determination burning in her chest, she prepared herself for the days ahead. She did not know what she would discover, but she knew one thing for sure: the truth was waiting, and she was ready to face it. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. Her alarm rang before sunrise, and for a moment, she almost forgot she was no longer living her normal life. The soft bed, the peaceful house, and the warm breakfast waiting downstairs reminded her of her comfortable world, but she quickly shook off that feeling. She was no longer just the CEO's daughter, she was a cleaner now, and her role demanded that she step into a new routine. She tied her hair into a simple bun, put on her plain uniform, and carried the same cleaning supplies she had used the day before. The clothes felt strange on her body, not because they were uncomfortable, but because they erased her identity. No one would look at her and see privilege. No one would expect her to be the daughter of the most respected man in the building. They would only see her as someone meant to sweep, mop, and dust. As she entered the company building, she blended easily into the background. The receptionists greeted managers and employees with polite smiles, but when she walked past, their eyes moved on as if she wasn't there. It was not done with cruelty, but it was a reminder of her invisibility. She had to remind herself that this was what she wanted: to be unseen so that she could truly see others. She started her work near the lobby. With her mop and bucket, she cleaned the marble floors while employees hurried past. She noticed how people's shoes tapped quickly against the wet floor without a word of acknowledgement. A few said "excuse me," but most walked around her silently. She watched carefully, storing these moments in her memory. Later that morning, she moved into the open office area where dozens of employees sat at their desks, typing and talking. She carried a small trash bag, emptying bins at each desk. At first, no one noticed her. But as she got closer, she began to hear comments. One man whispered loudly to another, "They keep hiring these cleaners who don't know their job." She felt her stomach tighten, but she said nothing. She knew he was not talking to her directly, but his tone carried annoyance, as if her presence was disturbing him. At the next desk, however, a young woman smiled warmly. "Thank you," she said softly as she placed her trash into the bag. The simple kindness filled the cleaner's heart with warmth. She smiled back and nodded, but her eyes told the young woman she was grateful for the acknowledgement. Throughout the day, she kept noticing how people treated her differently. Some employees avoided eye contact, as if she didn't exist. Others gave her orders in harsh voices, telling her to clean faster or to stay out of their way. But there were a few who treated her like a fellow human being, greeting her or thanking her for her work. These small acts of respect stood out in her memory more than anything else. During the afternoon, she was assigned to clean the conference room after a meeting. When she entered, a group of employees was still there, chatting casually. They didn't stop their conversation when she walked in. Instead, she became an invisible presence in the corner of the room, sweeping the floor while they spoke freely. That was when she heard something that shook her. Two employees began making fun of cleaners in general. They laughed about how easy the job must be, saying anyone could mop a floor or dust a desk. One even joked that cleaners probably didn't have much education. She felt her hands tighten around the broom handle, anger rising in her chest. She wanted to tell them who she really was, to wipe the smirk off their faces. But she reminded herself of her mission. She was here to observe, not to react. She took a deep breath and continued sweeping, even though every word stung. When the employees finally left, she sat alone in the conference room for a moment. She placed the broom against the wall and closed her eyes. Her father had always spoken about respect, but now she was seeing with her own eyes how people could forget to show it. She thought about the real cleaners who worked here daily. Did they hear these same words every day? Did they swallow their pride and continue working, just as she was doing now? For the first time, she truly understood the weight of what her father had always said, that the way a company treats its lowest workers is the real measure of its values. By evening, her body ached. Her arms felt heavy from scrubbing desks and lifting trash bags, and her back hurt from bending again and again. She was not used to physical labor, and she realized how much strength it required to do this job every single day. Yet despite the exhaustion, her mind was alert. She had learned so much in just one day about kindness, about cruelty, and about the silent strength of those who worked unseen. On the third day of her undercover role, she decided to pay even closer attention. She entered the break room during lunch and sat in the corner with her simple meal. Most employees ignored her, focusing on their own groups of friends. But she caught the eye of one older man, a clerk who had been with the company for many years. He walked over, smiled, and asked if she wanted to join his table. She hesitated but then nodded, grateful for the invitation. At his table, the man spoke kindly, asking about her life as if she were just another worker. She kept her answers vague, careful not to reveal too much. But inside, she felt a warmth she hadn't felt since starting this undercover journey. Not everyone saw her as invisible. There were still people who valued respect, no matter a person's job title. That evening, as she left the office, she carried with her more than just the weight of the cleaning supplies. She carried stories, emotions, and lessons. She had seen arrogance, disrespect, and carelessness. But she had also seen kindness, humility, and sincerity. The company was a place of mixed characters, and she was determined to discover them all. By the end of her second week, she had already begun to form clear pictures of many employees. She knew who treated others with compassion and who acted with pride. She had overheard conversations that revealed people's true thoughts when they believed no one important was listening. And she had felt, deeply, the difference between being seen and being ignored. Each night, she wrote down her observations in a small notebook. She didn't want to forget any detail: the rude comments, the kind gestures, the faces of those who treated her as human and those who didn't. This notebook would be her guide when the time came to reveal the truth. But for now, she kept her secret close to her heart. She was still just the cleaner, still invisible, still watching. And the more she saw, the more she realized that the real test was not for her, it was for the employees themselves. They were showing who they truly were, and when the time came, those choices would decide their future in the company. Days passed, and with each passing day her eyes opened wider. The office looked polished on the outside, but when she walked the halls as a cleaner, she saw a side that her father never saw. She had become part of the background, invisible to most, yet from that hidden place she noticed everything: the whispered conversations, the careless remarks, the quiet gestures of kindness, and the small displays of cruelty. One morning, she arrived early to clean the pantry before the employees began pouring in. As she wiped the counter, she overheard two young men talking by the coffee machine. They didn't realize she was standing nearby. Their voices were sharp, mocking the cleaners who probably couldn't find better jobs. One of them laughed and added, "These people don't even matter. They just clean up after us." The words stung like cold rain on her skin. She wanted to tell them that cleaners were human beings with stories, families, and dignity. Instead, she kept her head down, pretending to scrub harder, while her heart burned silently. Later that day, she had another moment that stayed with her. While emptying the trash bins in the accounts section, she accidentally dropped a pen that rolled under an employee's desk. As she bent down to pick it up, the man at the desk snapped at her sharply. "Be careful. Don't mess up my files." His voice was impatient, his eyes dismissive, as if she were not worth his time. She apologized softly, though inside she felt anger. She wasn't angry only for herself but for all the real cleaners who had to swallow such words every day. But the undercover experience was not only about cruelty. There were surprises that warmed her heart and gave her hope. In the same accounts section, another employee saw her struggling to carry a heavy trash bag. Without hesitation, he stood up, smiled, and helped her lift it. "Here, let me help," he said, his tone gentle. She thanked him quietly, and for a moment she wondered if he treated everyone that way or if it was just part of who he was. That small act of kindness stayed with her all day. As the days went on, her notebook filled with names and notes. She marked those who showed respect and those who did not. She noticed patterns: certain groups of employees often laughed at lower staff, while others quietly treated them with dignity. She had expected to see some differences, but she was shocked at how wide the gap really was. It became clear to her that her father's company had two sides: the polished side shown to management and the hidden side experienced by cleaners, guards, and junior staff. One Friday afternoon, she was cleaning the conference room again when a group of employees entered for a meeting. She stayed at the far corner, mopping the floor silently, while they spoke as if she didn't exist. At first, the discussion was about work, but soon it turned personal. Two of the staff members began complaining about the CEO. "He thinks he knows everything," one whispered, not realizing his daughter was just a few feet away. "If only he knew what really happens here." The others laughed, nodding in agreement. She froze, gripping the mop tighter. Hearing her father spoken about so casually, with so little respect, filled her with a mix of anger and sadness. These were the same people who bowed politely when he entered the office. They smiled at him and acted loyal, yet behind his back, they mocked him. That evening, she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she had seen and heard. Her father had always trusted his staff, believing loyalty was the foundation of success. Yet here were employees who treated cleaners with disdain and spoke disrespectfully behind his back. The truth she had uncovered was far heavier than she had expected. The next week, another incident left a deep mark on her heart. She was cleaning near the elevator when she saw a junior staff member drop some papers. As the young man bent to pick them up, two senior employees walked past him without offering help. Instead, they laughed at his clumsiness. She stood there quietly, her broom in hand, watching. She had to resist the urge to step forward and defend him. But before she could move, a receptionist walked over, bent down, and helped the young man gather his papers. That moment reminded her that kindness did exist in unexpected places. Sometimes, the people with the least power showed the most humanity. Her undercover journey was no longer just about testing employees. It was becoming a mirror of human character. She saw arrogance, but she also saw humility. She saw cruelty, but she also saw compassion. The company had both types of people, and soon she would have to decide what to do with this knowledge. One afternoon, while she was cleaning the break room, two employees began speaking about the cleaners in hushed tones. They didn't realize she was standing right there. One of them joked about how cleaners probably don't even understand English properly, and the other laughed loudly. She stood frozen, her face calm, but inside her heart ached. It wasn't about her anymore, it was about the real cleaners who lived this reality daily. She imagined how they must feel when laughed at, how they must carry that silent hurt home with them. It made her more determined than ever to complete her mission. By now, many employees had stopped noticing her completely. She had become part of the walls, part of the furniture. That invisibility gave her the power to see what others could not. She knew which employees were only pretending to be loyal, which ones were bullies in disguise, and which ones carried genuine respect for everyone. One evening, as she left the office, she paused at the main door and looked back. The tall glass building stood proudly, its lights glowing against the night sky. On the surface, it looked perfect, successful, disciplined, admired. But she knew the truth hidden inside. The company's strength did not only depend on numbers and profits. It depended on the character of its people. And she had seen enough to know that some people had no place in her father's company. Her heart felt heavy, but it also felt firm. She had uncovered the truth she came to find. She had walked in the shoes of the invisible and seen the company through their eyes. Now she carried with her not just notes in a book, but a responsibility to show her father what she had discovered and to make sure justice was done. The days ahead would not be easy. She knew that when the truth came out, some people would be shocked, others ashamed, and many afraid. But she also knew that the real cleaners and humble employees would finally feel seen and valued. That thought gave her strength. With every step she took, she grew more certain that the time for her reveal was drawing near. The faces of those who mocked and those who showed kindness were clear in her mind. Soon, they would all learn that the cleaner they ignored, the cleaner they laughed at, was not who they thought. She was watching, and she was ready. The morning of the reveal arrived, and she woke with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. For days, she had quietly observed every corner of the company, every interaction, every smile, and every cruel word. She had seen the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And now, the moment she had been preparing for was finally here. Today, she would step out of the shadows and show the employees the truth about who she really was. She dressed differently this morning. Gone was the plain uniform of the cleaner she had worn for weeks. In its place was a simple yet elegant outfit that spoke of her real identity, not flashy, but confident and professional. She looked in the mirror and took a deep breath, seeing herself not only as the CEO's daughter but as someone who carried the lessons of the past days. She was ready to face the reactions she knew were coming. When she entered the building, there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Employees passed by, busy with their work, unaware that the person they had ignored and, in some cases, ridiculed, would soon stand before them with authority. She walked calmly to the conference room, her heart steady but her mind alert. She knew that every eye would be on her soon, and she wanted to make sure her message was clear, fair, and unforgettable. The employees had been called for an unscheduled meeting. Whispers filled the hallways as they wondered what had prompted this sudden gathering. Some were curious, others suspicious, and a few seemed anxious. They took their seats in the large conference room, exchanging puzzled glances, unaware that the person they had all overlooked for so long was about to step into the center of their world. She entered quietly, standing at the front of the room. For a moment, there was silence as employees tried to recognize her. And then, as realization dawned, the murmurs grew louder. Some eyes widened in shock, others in fear, and a few faces turned pale. She was no longer the unnoticed cleaner. She was the CEO's daughter, the person whose family name carried influence, respect, and authority. Her voice rang clear as she spoke, steady but calm. For the past few weeks, I have been working among you as a cleaner. I wanted to see what happens when people think no one is watching. She paused, letting the words sink in. She could see the unease spreading across the room. People shifted in their seats, suddenly aware that the actions they had thought invisible were now fully visible to someone who mattered more than they had imagined. She continued, recounting the small acts she had witnessed. She spoke of employees who laughed at the cleaners, who treated them as if they were unimportant, and who spoke disrespectfully when they thought no one could hear. She did not single out names yet, but the room was filled with tension. Every whispered word, every careless gesture from the past week seemed to replay in the minds of those present. Then she shifted to the other side: the kindnesses, the small gestures of care, the moments when employees had treated others with respect and dignity. She spoke of the employees who had held doors, offered water, helped carry heavy loads, and smiled warmly without expectation. Her words were balanced and fair, showing that she had observed everything, not just the negative moments. As she spoke, she noticed the expressions changing. Some employees looked ashamed, avoiding her gaze. Others appeared worried, their nervousness plain to see. A few were genuinely curious, leaning forward to hear what she had to say. She had expected this, and she remained calm. Her mission was not about humiliation, it was about truth and accountability. Finally, she paused and addressed the hardest part. Some of you have treated people who work here with disrespect. You have laughed, mocked, and ignored them. That behavior is not acceptable in my father's company. We value every individual, regardless of their role. And because of your actions, some of you will no longer be part of this company. The words were firm, leaving no room for argument. Some faces paled further, and a few employees shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Then came the part that many had not expected. She looked directly at the employees who had shown kindness and respect. But for those who treated others with dignity, who showed patience and humanity, your efforts have not gone unnoticed. You are the people who make this company strong, and you will continue to grow here. She paused, letting the relief and pride wash over those who had acted with integrity. A silence filled the room as everyone absorbed the weight of her words. The atmosphere was heavy, yet charged with the realization that their actions had consequences. The CEO's daughter had seen everything, and she was prepared to act on it. Some employees who had believed they were untouchable now understood that character mattered more than titles, more than appearances, more than seniority. She took a deep breath and continued, her tone softening slightly. I did not do this to punish anyone for the sake of punishment. I did this to show that respect and kindness matter, and that cruelty, arrogance, and disregard for others will not be tolerated. This is your opportunity to reflect, to learn, and to grow. Her words were measured, but they carried authority. The employees listened, their previous confidence replaced with careful attention. Then she began calling out the names of those who had failed to treat others with respect. One by one, she explained why their behavior was unacceptable. Some tried to defend themselves, but she listened patiently, having already witnessed their true actions. The decision was firm, but fair. They would leave the company, but the message was clear: their choices, not their titles, had led them to this moment. Next, she acknowledged the employees who had acted with kindness and respect. She praised them for their consistent behavior, reminding everyone that real strength comes from humility and empathy. Some received quiet applause from their colleagues, others nodded, feeling both proud and validated. She wanted them to know that their good behavior mattered and that they were valued in a company that truly cared. By the end of the meeting, the room was quiet, charged with the weight of her words. The employees had seen the truth. They had learned that invisibility was not ignorance, that actions mattered more than appearances, and that respect was a requirement, not an option. The CEO's daughter had not only revealed herself but had revealed the reality of human behavior in the workplace. As she left the room, she felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction. The mission she had undertaken in silence, walking the halls as a cleaner, observing quietly, had reached its climax. She had seen the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and she had acted with fairness and purpose. The employees would remember this day for a long time, not just because of her identity, but because of the lessons she had shared about respect, integrity, and humanity. Later that day, as she returned home, she reflected on the experience. She had learned more about people than she ever expected. She had seen fear, shame, pride, and humility. She had witnessed the hidden side of a workplace that appeared perfect to the outside world. Most importantly, she had discovered that leadership was not only about power or position, it was about understanding, observing, and acting when necessary to uphold fairness and values. The experience also strengthened her bond with her father. She knew he would be proud not only of her courage but of her judgment. She had acted wisely, balancing justice with compassion, and she had ensured that the company remained true to the principles he had built it upon. And though some employees had been fired, she felt that the action was necessary. It sent a message that behavior mattered above all else. Those who had been kind and respectful would continue to grow, while those who had failed to show empathy would have to face the consequences of their choices. The company, she realized, was stronger now not just in profits or reputation, but in the character of the people who remained. As the evening fell, she sat quietly, thinking about the journey she had undertaken. From an invisible cleaner to the revealed CEO's daughter, she had seen a world she never knew existed. She had tested human character, and she had acted to uphold what was right. The lessons of respect, kindness, and integrity would not be forgotten, and she knew that the company and its employees would be changed forever. After the big reveal, the atmosphere in the company was completely changed. Employees walked through the halls with a new sense of awareness, realizing that every action, every word, and every gesture mattered more than they had ever understood. The CEO's daughter had not only exposed the truth, but she had also created a moment of reflection for everyone. Some were nervous about what would come next, while others felt a sense of relief that fairness had finally been shown. The first consequence of her undercover mission was immediate. Those who had been rude, careless, or disrespectful toward others were called into meetings with their managers and HR. She had prepared clear notes about what each person had done wrong, from ignoring colleagues to mocking the cleaners. For some, it was shocking to hear specific examples of behavior they had assumed would go unnoticed. They realized, often too late, that respect is not optional, and that the little acts of cruelty had been seen and remembered. Despite the initial tension, she made sure that fairness guided every decision. No one was punished for mistakes made without intent. Her focus was on consistent behavior, how people treated others over time. She believed that everyone deserved a chance to reflect and learn, but repeated disrespect could not be ignored. For some employees, the consequence was termination; for others, it was a formal warning paired with guidance on how to improve their interactions. At the same time, those who had shown kindness, patience, and humility received acknowledgement. The CEO's daughter ensured that these employees felt appreciated and valued. She personally thanked many of them, praising their consistent respect for colleagues regardless of rank. She reminded them that their actions made the workplace stronger and set a standard for others. Their pride and confidence grew, and some even expressed that they had never felt so recognized in their careers. The experience also strengthened teamwork. Employees who had witnessed the reveal and its consequences began reflecting on their own behavior. Many realized that they, too, had taken others for granted, assuming that hierarchy excused disrespect. Conversations began to shift. Colleagues started to treat one another with more care, understanding that every individual contributed to the success of the company. The environment became warmer, friendlier, and more supportive. Even the cleaners who had worked quietly behind the scenes felt a sense of validation. For years, they had gone unnoticed, their efforts taken for granted. But now, the company had seen how much their work mattered. The CEO's daughter made sure to meet with them personally, listening to their experiences and thanking them for their dedication. She wanted them to know that their presence and effort were valued, and that no one should ever feel invisible. This small but meaningful interaction left a lasting impression on the cleaning staff, many of whom felt a renewed pride in their work. The CEO himself was deeply impressed by his daughter's initiative. He admired her courage, her patience, and her ability to act justly. He had always believed in fairness and integrity, but seeing his daughter carry out these principles in practice gave him a sense of pride beyond words. He shared with her how important it was to lead with both authority and empathy, and he encouraged her to continue taking an active role in the company's culture. Meanwhile, the employees who remained learned valuable lessons that went far beyond office etiquette. They understood that character is revealed not by who you know or what position you hold, but by how you treat those around you, especially those with less power. They learned humility, empathy, and the importance of valuing every human being. Many reflected privately on their behavior and made personal commitments to change for the better. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere in the company continued to improve. Meetings were conducted with more respect, interactions became more thoughtful, and employees started supporting one another more openly. The CEO's daughter observed these changes with quiet satisfaction, knowing that her undercover mission had sparked a transformation that no memo or policy could have achieved alone. Her efforts had reminded everyone that leadership and respect are earned, not demanded. The story of her undercover role also became an inspiring example in the company's culture training. New employees were told about the time the CEO's daughter went undercover to see the truth of the workplace. They learned that respect, kindness, and integrity were not just words on paper, but essential values that guided every interaction. The story served as a reminder that every action matters, and that every person, regardless of role, deserves to be treated with dignity. Her journey also left a lasting impact on her personally. She had started the mission curious and determined, but she ended it with a deeper understanding of human nature, responsibility, and leadership. She realized that true leadership is not about status or authority, but about seeing what others cannot, understanding the needs of all, and taking action to ensure fairness. Her father's lessons about respect and humility had been true all along, but living them herself gave her insight and confidence that no classroom or office visit could have provided. The employees who were fired eventually realized their mistakes, though it was a hard lesson. Some felt regret, understanding that their behavior had cost them an opportunity they might never have again. Others accepted the consequences quietly, carrying the experience as a reminder that behavior has consequences, and that respect is never optional. Meanwhile, those who remained became stronger, wiser, and more aware of the power of kindness. The company thrived in the months following the reveal. Productivity improved, not just because employees were now cautious, but because they genuinely wanted to contribute positively. Collaboration increased, and even small acts of consideration, helping a colleague, offering a word of encouragement, or acknowledging someone's efforts became more common. The culture of respect created an environment where everyone felt seen and valued. For the CEO's daughter, the mission reinforced a personal belief she had long held, that leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. She had learned that courage, patience, and fairness are key to making meaningful change, and that even small actions, when guided by integrity, can create a lasting impact. She knew that her experience would shape her role in the company for years to come, and she felt ready to continue making decisions that upheld both justice and humanity. In the end, The story of her undercover journey became more than a lesson for employees, it became a symbol of accountability and empathy. It showed that no one is above respect, that actions matter more than words, and that kindness and integrity are the foundations of a strong workplace. Employees who had once been careless began to act with thoughtfulness, and those who had been unnoticed began to feel valued and important. Looking back, she realized that her time as a cleaner had been more than an experiment. It had been a journey into the hearts of the people around her, revealing their true selves. She had witnessed human weakness and strength, cruelty and compassion, ignorance and awareness. And she had acted wisely, ensuring that justice and encouragement were balanced perfectly. Her mission was complete, but its lessons would last forever. The company had changed, the employees had changed, and she had changed. And in the quiet moments, she often reflected on the journey, grateful for the opportunity to see the world from the perspective of the invisible, and to bring fairness, recognition, and humanity into a place where they were most needed. The story ended not with anger or punishment, but with understanding, reflection, and hope. The company was stronger, the employees were wiser, and the lessons of respect, kindness, and integrity were now etched into the foundation of everything they did. And for the CEO's daughter, it was a moment of growth, courage, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that doing the right thing had changed lives for the better.